It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to brew the Magic world. You know the model, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're doing back today, wrapping up our first week of 6 videos. We're doing this for most of the month of December to just finish up the year, get a bunch of decks out for y'all. I love brewing. Overbrewed a little bit, but that's not bad at all. Today, we're covering Zada Hedron Grinder. Got a reprint with some new art here in Foundation's Jumpstart, so I figured it'd be time to go back and take a jam at it. 4 mana, 3/3 Goblin Ally. It's cool to see Ally on a card. I know there haven't been any new allies in a long time, but an old Zendikar mechanic. But whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets only Zada, we're going to copy that for each other creature we control that spell could target, and the copy targets a different one of them. So basically, if we put a single target spell on Zada, it's going to copy and target every other creature we control. And this is a really fun ability because there's a lot of really great spells that can buff a creature. And for 1 or 2 mana, you can give it to your entire board, making them way better. Right? There's a lot of ways we could approach doing this. I think the easiest way is to make goblins. Goblins are so great in red, and there's so many ways to make a ton of them, so we're going to do that. We have other ways to do it, and we'll talk about that in our slides. We're going to have some ways to buff our other goblins. If we're going to care about them, we might as well kind of care about it and make it a thing so we can really take advantage of them. We're going to talk about some of the best pump spells we could play or some options. And then we're going to talk about ways that we could potentially cast them all again, because obviously they're going to go to our graveyard. We want to talk about ways we can cast them again, take advantage of them again, and really just go off and have some fun. So first off, I think we talk about how are we going to get more creatures, right? At the end of the day, how are we going to amass more creatures for Zada to be able to copy? And I think some of the easier way are some of these goblins that make goblins we attack. We have things like Battlecry Goblin, that whenever it attacks, if we have creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, we can make a 1/1 goblin tapped and attacking. Same thing with Creed, makes that goblin tapped and attacking. When it attacks, it can also dole out some damage. Krenko makes some goblins when it attacks after it puts a counter on itself. So here's ways to get these creatures in. Now, I want to mention with Creed and Battlecry Goblin that you can actually take advantage of making goblins that are tapped and attacking, because what we can do is we can attack, right? Have all our triggers go off on the stack, making all of the tokens, and then we can cast the spell that targets Zada, copy it, and all those ones that just came in tapped and attacking are going to get that buff as well. Siege Gang and Commander and Lieutenant both make some tokens. Siege Gang Commander only does it when it enters the battlefield. Siege Gang Lieutenant, which is pretty cool, actually does it every combat, making us 2 that then have haste. Again, being nice attackers alongside Zada. Squee Dubious Monarch makes a 1/1 tapped and attacking every time it attacks, so again allows us to get some extra bodies during combat instead of just using all of our spells main phase. But I think seeing there's some of the easiest ways to get them: Dragon Fodder, Hordeling Outburst, Song of Totentans, we just to make some tokens. Fodder and Outburst don't give them haste, where Song of Totentans does, but I don't mind, right, making these even before Zada comes down and having them ready to go, right, once we do get in with Zada. Krenko's Command would be another option there for more gobos. It's just not showed here. I like Goblin Surprise as a kind of a dual one. It doesn't target Zada directly, right, so it won't get copied. But what I like about Goblin Surprise is you can either get the 2 goblins, or you can just give a flat +2/+0 to all your creatures. This is really beneficial when you start to see some of our targeted spells that we're going to cast are going to give things trample, and now you're guaranteeing, right, extra damage. Frontline Heroism from this deck kind of feels like the card that this is, the deck this is meant to be played in. When it enters, you make a 1/1 soldier with haste, and then whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single creature you control, you can create a 1/1 and then copy that spell and it targets the token. The way this will actually work with Zada coolly is if we have the Heroism go off first, it's going to make the soldier copy the spell targeting the soldier, and then Zada will actually create a second copy of that spell targeting that soldier and all your other creatures as well. So that soldier is actually going to get double the buffs, which is pretty cool. Goblin Slide says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we get pay 1. If we do, we get a Gobbo with haste. So again, not a bad way to continue putting some bodies on the board for us. I labeled this slide wild cards because I think these are some really interesting creatures that we can play around with, but they're not the focus, right? Enduring Courage, giving all creatures that come in +2/+0, and haste is a beautiful ability, especially when we start slamming 1/1 goblins down with different spells. Of course, the Courage won't affect something like the Krenko that makes them that don't come in tapped and attacking. But this will really help the goblins that come in tapped and attacking because they're going to get that +2/+0 benefit. Giggling Skitter Spike seems like a really interesting creature in a deck like this. Whenever it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. This is really fun because remember that when you copy those spells with Zada, you are actually targeting the creatures that they copy, meaning that Skitter Spike should be able to dole out some damage. And if we can make it bigger or target with multiple spells in a turn, we have a chance to deal, right, more than one spell. Or we could pay 5 and make it monstrous, right, and start to deal more damage out with it. Storm Splitter, I feel like, might be a little bit more of a pipe dream than the other things in this deck, but I think it represents another way you could go. It says whenever you cast it into the sorcery, you can make a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter, and then you exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. My thought here is Zada doesn't cast the copies, but you're already casting a spell targeting Zada, meaning that you're going to get a second Storm Splitter. And then if you go to choose more and more, you're always going to get more Storm Splitters and more buffs right on those copies. It feels like a great body to potentially have some fun with that interaction. But I think it's also worth paying off our goblins, as I think it's the creature type we care about the most. You have things like Goblin Chieftain and Trash Bastard that just give all your goblins a little bit of a buff. The Chieftain can give them haste. The Trash Master can actually have a sack of goblins to destroy artifacts, which is a great ability if we need to take out some of our opponent's pesky things. Then, of course, it's really hard to play a goblin deck without at least one Krenko, and here we're playing a second one in Krenko Mob Boss, being able to tap to make a bunch of new goblins. If we have any way to give them haste, then they're going to get out of hand, but otherwise, I think just refilling for the next turn feels really good. And it's going to allow us to take real advantage of the things that are on board. But let's get into the pump spells. This is the thing we really care about. This is where this deck shines. There's a lot of them. I only chose to show some of them, but there's so many we could choose for the deck. Things like Kick Down the Door gives a creature a counter, and Haste until end of turn can't be blocked by walls, and Venturouses us into the dungeon. This means that we're basically going to be able to probably complete at least 1 or 2 dungeons, depending on how many creatures on the battlefield, right? Allowing for some extra value there for just 1 mana. Reckless Charge gives +3/+0 and Haste. Again, a little bit of a power buff there, and Haste, especially if we've made a bunch of goblins that turn. Ancestor's Aid gives +2/+0 first strike and makes us a treasure. Right now, here's a spell that's going to net us mana in the process of buffing our board. Brute Strength +3/+1 trample. Bulk up, double the creature's power until end of turn. So if we can get this plus a trample and able to right, big turn probably ahead. Crimson Whisk will have a creature become red and get haste and draw us a card. So again, here's a way to draw a few cards in this deck for having multiple creatures out. Downhill Charge has a sack of mountain rather than pay its mana cost. That's only on cast. Actually, when we copy it, we don't have to do that at all. And then the creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of mountains we control. So across the board, you're now giving a massive buff to your creatures. Dreadmire's Ire is another great one. +2/+2 and trample as long as it's attacking. And then whenever this creature does combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact that players control. Could just take a player's board of artifacts out, for hitting them with this one. Fists of Flame, another draw a card. Until end of turn, target creature gains trample and +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. Now, Fist of Flames enters a kind of interesting space with this, because Zada's going to copy the spell for all the rest of your creatures, right? As they resolve, right, the buff's going to get bigger and bigger as it works its way back down to Zada, which is going to get a huge buff and may even potentially, right, be a threat for commander damage with that trample, and you're going to draw a bunch of cards for it. So Fist of Flame, really nice. Invigorating Rampage, +4/+0 and trample, again, gets to cascade down the entire board. Monstrous Rage, +2/+0, and getting that monster token, which gives it, roll token, which gives it +1/+1 and trample. Rabid Gnaw is a kind of fun one. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and then deals its damage to target creature you don't control. Now, Zada doesn't say that you can change the targets on the spells, so I don't think that Rabid Gnaw will actually let you just nuke your opponent's entire board of creatures by choosing them differently, but it could allow you to take out a pesky creature while buffing, right, your entire board by +1/+0. Rush of Adrenaline, +2/+1 trample. Sudden Breakthrough, +2/+0 first strike and a treasure, so beautiful there. Teamer Battle Rage, double strike until end of turn. And then if you have a creature that's power 4 or greater, trample. So here's a 2-mana way to give your entire board double strike and trample for huge damage on our opponents. Titan Strength +3/+1 and Scry 1, but still a decent buff. Twinferno can either give the ability to copy a spell or just double strike and then Unleash Fury, double the power. So again, you can see the wide range of spells that we have access to here that we can use to our advantage. But I think the real key to this deck comes from using the spells again, especially when we need them. I think the ideal thing would be something like Mizzix Mastery to get your entire graveyard worth of spells back and, put them on your creatures and get a bunch of big bucks for a big alpha swing. Passive Flames can allow you to get a bunch of things back in your graveyard to flash them back, use them again, get big value. I like the idea of something like Invoke Calamity, 5 mana to get up to 2 instant or sorceries with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard or hand without paying their mana costs. So you can kind of get 2 back from your graveyard, use them right away, target, get the buffs. Just a way to start recycling the things we have in our graveyard instead of just being one and done on all of our pump spells and getting to be able to use them again. But I've said it before on the show and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Zada. And I think there's a lot of things we can learn in testing. Mainly, do we have enough? The deck has things like Runaway Steam to help it get some red mana. But do we need things like Burgi or Urabras to continue to get some more red mana every time we cast spells to keep the spell chain going? Like, is that what we need? Do we need to push ourselves more into that? Heat Shimmer and other cards like it represent copying our creatures. If you think about it, if we were to Heat Shimmer Zada, we would technically Heat Shimmer our entire board, kind of effectively creating copies of all the creatures we control and getting some extra attacks. Do we want things like that? Is that something that we want to see more of? And then something like City on Fire. We do have some damage manipulators in the deck, but do we need more of them? Dealing more damage as we get into combat and affecting more? These are the questions that I think as we go into testing, as we play around with the deck, do we need more in those areas and do we need to turn the dials up? Getting on our first playtest, we are keeping a 3-lander here. I'm not sure what's going on with my taskbar here. There we go. Keeping a 3-lander here with Arena of Glory, a way to give a creature haste, which is pretty cool. And 2 other mountains. Expedite, which gives a creature haste and draws a card. Invoke Calamity, Hordeling Outburst, and that Heroism. So not bad. Basically, I'm thinking we're just kind of working our way up to Zada, right? I think turn 3 is where the real question is, do we Hordeling Outburst or do we do something like Frontline Heroism to kind of build up and kind of think of something like the Heroism? It's going to lead to a little bit of an awkward turn 4 here as Zada's the only thing we're going to play. But again, we're setting up, right? We're accumulating these spells in our hand. There's Skull Clamp, right, for a little bit of draw. Here we go. Brute Strength, +3/+1 and Trample. Bulk up for the double. Expedite for the haste. You could start to see, I thought here is something like Hordeling Outburst. It's going to make us a couple goblins, right? Then I'm thinking Expedite on Zada, right? This then has Frontline Heroism go off, making us that soldier. And it gets the haste, so we draw off that. We draw off all 3 of our goblins that are now getting haste, and then we draw off Zada. So unfortunately, we drew a ton of cards this turn we might have to pitch. But my thought is we're getting in through these cards to try to fit ourselves more. But anyway, we've got 1 mana left this turn. I don't see anything too sexy, but hey, we could take the attacks, right? Get ourselves into some damage. I think we'd probably play something like Skull Clamp so we can get it prepped for next turn if we need to get some more draw through our deck. But getting here to turn 6, I mean, the hope is that we could start really getting in. So we have Twinferno for double strike, Bulk Up for doubling up the power, and Brute Strength for a plus. So if we were to play all 3, that's +3, and then double strike. That might even make Zada potentially commander damage on somebody, and these hit pretty hard, right? And the cool part is we get a soldier every time it happens. Not just the first time. Sorry, I apologize. It would have gotten a second soldier last turn. Every time it happens. So my thought process here is these are all instants, right? We go to start combat. We put the Brute Strength on Zada. That, remember, right, with Frontier Heroism makes another one. So that that extra copy is actually going to get +6/+2. The other ones just get +3/+1, right? Then we to Inferno, right, giving them double strike. Here we go, another soldier, right, that has double strike now. It wouldn't have gotten that original buff, but it's going to get double strike. And then I'm thinking bulk up as well. Another soldier that get doubled. But the point here is now Zada went from 6 to now 12 with double strike, right? And now our opponents are going to have to worry, right, about that. We go in, swing. Now you've got a bunch of these goblins that are going to hurt, right? Having been +3'd up to 4, doubled to 8, and now having double strike, right? Those are big attackers for our opponents to deal with. And the truth is, now we can invoke Calamity again next turn. Again, flashing back the Brute Strength and the Twin Inferno, or the Brute Strength and the Bulk Up if we want to, and get to do that again with more soldiers. I think this is where this deck probably shines the best, is these scenarios where you can start getting these great combinations of spells. But I think we've represented pretty much what Zada wanted to do in that one. Let's get into playtest number 2, keeping a 3-lander with Krenko, Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. It can make 2 elementals with haste every turn. A great way to just get more bodies, right, for Zada's effect. Heraldic Banner, a +1/+0 across the board for red creatures. And then Stormkiln, probably something I should have mentioned in the PowerPoint, but didn't. Whenever you cast or copy a spell, you make a treasure. So Zada's just going to net you a bunch of treasures, right, as a way to get more mana. But I think we'll just start by working our way. I'm thinking up towards the Heraldic Banner. I want to make sure that it, gets down and gets us an extra mana. Sudden Breakthrough we talked about. Ancestral Anger, Trample, and +X/+0. So just X is 1 plus the number of cards in your graveyard called Ancestral Anger, which is just 1, but the point is it draws you a card as well. So it leads right to some fun card draw. So 5 mana here on turn 4. I think the answer is just Zada. Leave up 1 if need be. But again, we're trying to push ourselves towards a half-decent turn. My thought here is I could Stormkiln Artist and do one of these, right? And get a couple treasures for it. My thought was Chandra plus one of these and have the goblins attack. But maybe it's just Siege Gang Commander this turn. Make it a couple goblins. And then they don't have haste, but I could attack with Zada and Ancestral Anger to draw 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could do that. I'm not entirely sure. I'd love to try to get even more creatures down to get a bigger buff, especially with something like Stormkiln Artist down, so we could take advantage of the cards and the treasures. But I think I would just attack with Zada. If somebody makes a dangerous block, we could always do something like Ancestral Anger. But I think I'd wait the turn. It feels odd to wait the turn, but I think it makes more sense here, where we could play something like Stormkiln Artist. Let's Crash Through. This unfortunately won't mass draw us cards because it doesn't target. It just gives all of our creatures trample and draws us a card. Now we've got 2 mana left. Here I'm thinking Ancestral Anger on Zada. Now we copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. That means 5 more treasures, right? And then 5 cards. Now all of them have +1/+0 and Trample, right? They already had Trample because of the Crash Through. But we still got 1 mana left, and we have access to the treasures, right? So I would probably... I could take a couple treasures, play the Chandra, 0 the Chandra to make the elementals for this turn. Moving to combat, I'd probably attack. I mean, Stormkiln's got a good buff right now, unless somebody's really at danger of blocking it, But then what we have the privilege of doing in combat is playing the Sudden Breakthrough, right? So now all these creatures are attacking. They're all going to get +2/+0 in first strike. We make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 treasures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more treasures because of Stormkiln. Now we're just swimming in mana. And if a couple of them get through unblocked, we could always downhill charge this turn to settle in for more damage. We have the Battle Hymn to just make a ton of red mana. You could see where, you're just going to be able to just go off here this turn. And if we don't hit it this turn, it's okay. We wait, go into next turn, do the Chandra again, and then play the downhill charge and, and attack a bunch next turn. But the cool part with the Siege Gangs, we can fling the goblins if we want to, but we don't use the treasures. Stormkiln just gets huge, and with that trample, it probably would have been pretty big this turn, hitting for a bunch of damage. But I think that's pretty good on that playtest. Again, a lot of these playtests are pretty stripped back because the truth is we're either going to have it or we're not, right? And we're trying to figure out what it looks like when we do have it. 3 mana here with Krenko, Downhill Charge, Trashmaster, and Monstrous Rage. It's not a bad start. Drawing that 4th land ain't half bad. I think we're just going to kind of work our way towards 3 mana. We'll play the Battlecry Goblin here since it's our best play on 2. 3, I'm thinking it's Krenko, right? Work our way up towards the next turn where we can make some goblins when we attack. What I'd probably do is put down Zada and then try to attack with the Krenko, getting us a couple goblins, right? Battlecry we can attack if we want to, but I don't think we're going to be able to get the 6 power necessary to make another one, so I think we just leave it back. I'm sure Krenko can make a decent 2-3 attack here on turn 4. But the whole point is that we're working up here, so we have power on board. I love the idea of something like Trashmaster plus Monstrous Rage, just to give all of our goblins a buff, and then Monstrous Rage is going to get some trample. Remember that Krenko makes them to his power, so as long as we can do these before it goes off, we're just going to make a ton of goblins, right? That doesn't seem like a half bad idea. I declare the attacks. Krenko goes on the stack. Battlecry Goblin goes on the stack. Let's do Monstrous Rage first. So that's going to give all of them a Monstrous Roll token. So that's basically +3/+1 this turn in trample. Krenko will then get a counter, so it's at 6, making 6 more goblins. The Battlecry Goblin will make another goblin tapped and attacking. And so now they have great buffs this turn, basically being +4/+2 because of Trashmaster, and taking a big attack, right? And then all we need to do is do it again, right? Untap and do it again. Turn 6, we see the Past in Flames if we want to cast it back, but I think like Downhill Charge plus Bulk Up could just be enough. They don't have Trample, which I think is the only reason that like flashing back the Monstrous Rage. Oh, sorry. No. The roll gives them trample. That's right. So this is perfect, right? The charge plus the bulk up should be pretty brutal. We don't want to pay the mountain. It's just going to be +6, and then bulk up's going to flip it, right? So +6, 1 from the goblin will be 7, 1 from the monstrous roll. So they're +8 this turn, and then it gets doubled. So all these are well up towards 20 power. And again, if nobody has it, right, this is the point where you might just win the game in combat. But let me know, what do you think of Zada down in the comment section below. An interesting deck. I hadn't really ever given Zada a shot, but I think the deck looks like a ton of fun. To me, I can't help but compare it to something like Feather, which Mikey plays a lot in our play group. And I think it'd be interesting to see what he thinks of this deck and whether he likes the differences between the two. But let me know what you think of Zada down in the comment section below, and I will catch you on the next.